It is a game changer if you want a highly optimized team. 3 things that I'm always looking for in every hire, in almost every firm that I visit or that I've been a part of. When you say, what are the biggest problems? What are the biggest issues? I keep saying the same stuff because I see it all the time.
The Earley Show will begin after a brief word from today's sponsor, Answering Legal. Visit answeringlegal.com to learn more about our 24/7 virtual receptionist team.
Answering Legal helps my practice by allowing me to never miss a call, and all of my clients and potential clients, when they call, they always reach a live person. The office doesn't miss any calls anymore. We get text messages. Somebody is available 24/7. Clients can call and reach a live person at any time. I absolutely would recommend Answering Legal to other attorneys in our area. It allows attorneys to have a little more freedom. Answering Legal allows me to get more work done.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of The Earley Show, sponsored by our friends over at Answering Legal. I'm your host, Chris Earley, and as always, we bring to you on each and every episode some of the very, very best and brightest in the legal industry. Today, I'm really excited, truly pumped up. We have Bill Biggs on the show. Bill's a guy I've been following for a while. I've seen him on the conference show a bunch of times. I've heard him speak throughout the country. Ton of respect for the man. He's just getting after it. Like me, his hair is on fire. He's got energy. He's into it. And I'm excited to talk with him. So Bill's got a really interesting backstory, which led him to where he is today. And so I'm just really excited to get into it. Bill, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it, man.
Chris, love it. Thank you so much. Enjoy our friendship, appreciate our friendship. It's grown over the last couple of years, and I can tell that we're kindred spirits about what this industry should be all about and what we're trying to move it towards. And so thanks for having me on, man. Love it.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate you, man. I do. So I've done my homework and I've met and talked with you. I know quite a bit about your story. I think it's a very interesting one. That's why I wanted to have you on the show. But could you take us back to the beginning, especially, growing up, mom and dad, brothers and sisters? I always like to sort of start at the start to see, where it all started. So if you could just take us back, how you were influenced at a young age, please.
Yeah. So the key figure in my life who basically raised me is my maternal grandmother. And my mom and dad were divorced when I was 2. I don't have any bad memories of childhood related to my parents' divorce, but obviously it shaped me. It shaped me in ways that I probably wasn't even aware of at the time. But good relationships, everything growing up was good. But my mom was an ICU nurse. She worked intensive care overnight shifts at a hospital. And my grandmother was in what was called at the time the civil service. So my grandmother would watch me at night when I was a kiddo while my mom went to work. And that lasted all through middle school and high school. And so my grandmother was this very central figure. And she not only worked civil service in the military, I grew up in Fort Hood, Killeen, Texas, but she also was a very strong woman of faith. That was a big part of her background, of her life. She was an entrepreneur. She owned a childcare center and several rental properties. And she was a single woman. Her husband, my grandfather, had come back from World War II with severe PTSD.
Oh boy.
And so she was basically a widow, although he was hospitalized for most of his life after the war in a VA hospital. And so we would go and visit him, but he wasn't active. He wasn't present. To the day she died, she never remarried. She loved him, was deeply, committed to him. But that's a fascinating story in and of itself. He was a war hero, tail gunner in a bomber over North Africa and Italy in World War II. My other grandfather was also, he was Utah Beach, Day 2, D-Day +2 is what they call it. So anyway, I was raised basically by my mom and my grandmother, mostly by my grandmother. So these values of hard work, treat people right, respect people, toughness, grit, that was her. and it had to be given what she was doing. She was raising two girls, or had raised two girls, my mom and my aunt, and then in some ways raised me like a son. And so, but this was, in the late 70s, early 70s. I was born in 72. I know that's shocking for most of the listeners. Way back when.
76 here. I'm not far behind, brother.
There you go. But in that day, here's this woman who has a very interesting story because of her husband and the impact of war. We call it PTSD now. They call it shell shock. And so that was a fascinating thing to look back on as I got older, to understand those dynamics. But I have tremendous memories of my grandmother, of my mom. My mom's still living. My grandmother passed away.
Sorry.
Sure. Thank you. Looking back now, I realize, well, it's a very unconventional upbringing, but there was so much richness to it. And I learned so much, as a kid, as a 12-year-old boy on a Saturday morning, going to work in rental properties owned by a woman who's making her way at that time in the world. Pretty impressive when I look back on it. And, before I could go play football with my buddies, I was painting walls and, scraping windows and working on rental property to contribute to the family. So learned a lot of good stuff. Yeah.
Massive influence on your life, huh?
Huge.
Yeah, I love that.
And not to be morbid in any way, to me, it's beautiful. I would say one of the three most meaningful experiences of my life. And I say opportunity. I had the opportunity to be there when my grandmother passed away. She actually passed away in my arms.
Oh my God.
And
wow.
And it was, it's going to happen to us all. We all experience that. And there was if I could have written the script, I couldn't have written it any better to have been there with her in that moment. So
that's beautiful.
So it was beautiful.
That's beautiful.
So I was and am very thankful for that moment.
I love it. That was such a cool story, man. It sounds like, highly influenced by her, and she, obviously pushed the right buttons, as did your mom, to get you in a position to thrive. And I think it's a testament to, what they did to contribute to your upbringing. I think that's fantastic that you're making the most of everything you have, everything you've been given. I think that's really cool. That's what I try to do.
I hope so.
That's all
right.
we can
do. We keep trying, right? We keep
trying. That's just, So thank you, Bill. That was really cool. I had no idea, and I appreciate you sharing that. So going forward a little bit, you got to college. So you didn't just walk into law firms. Obviously, not a lawyer, which I love because you have a different take. We have a lot of lawyers in the show, but it's nice to have someone who's not a lawyer because just such refreshing dialogue, a change of pace. So you didn't just step into a law firm, start working, at a law firm. You got out of, stop me if I'm misstating anything, but I believe you got a master's degree and you got into teaching. You were a therapist for a time. Is that all accurate? Do I have that right or no?
Yeah. Basically, yeah. I was teaching right out of college while I was getting my master's. My master's was in counseling psychology from A&M. And then when I started into the business world, in fact, actually starting my first year in a law firm, I was extremely fortunate to get accepted into an executive business program at Harvard up there in your neck of the woods.
Yeah.
And by the way, there's no way I would have been accepted out of high school or so. It was because it was an executive program. I do have 3 credit hours from Harvard, if that counts.
More than I've got.
So I did that program in executive education called the CORE program. Professionally, though, I taught. I actually became the headmaster of a private school for a year where I was teaching. And then when I say therapist, really I was a pastoral counselor. I worked in a church for about 10 years, and a lot of that had to do with counseling and working with college students. And that was a fascinating time. That was a part of, I was in the early years of that, I was getting internship time for my master's. And I learned so much about people, about myself, about what makes us tick. and how we function, how we see the world, and the ways that we've been impacted by so many different things. And I would say that laid a lot of groundwork for how I function now and professionally, and how I view the world and people and the work that we do, how we do it together, the barriers to that. Yeah, important time in my life. Then I went into business, got into media, some radio stations, a couple of magazines back when magazines were a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was while I was doing that I was approached by a law firm, and the rest is history. That was over 15 years ago.
So you're going through your career. You had a couple. You had an interesting trajectory. You didn't just stay in one lane. You were exploring opportunities, right? But in doing my homework, I discovered, and tell me if I'm wrong, that you found purpose through getting individuals to work together with others, right? To get teams together. Did you play sports growing up?
Yes, I did. I played a lot of sports, and that's a very interesting observation on your part. Yes, and now, to kind of cut to the chase of an interesting professional path, I think I realized somewhere in my 30s, I couldn't really figure out what am I? Because there wasn't a profession or a title that seemed to fit the things that I did. But yet I always found, and I started to be able to follow the breadcrumbs and realize where I am most in my wheelhouse is when I am helping grow other people. I enjoy investing in other people. It gives me a deep level of satisfaction. I believe in it fundamentally. I believe in humans. I believe in people and their value and their inherent worth fundamentally. So I receive a great deal of satisfaction from that. I had seen success in that. But I also had this really strong interest and drive in putting people together, working with the individuals, caring for the individual, growing the individual, and then putting a bunch of those individuals together for a purpose, for a mission, with some meaning behind it. And that's where I experienced my greatest exhilaration of that sense of purpose. Like, I'm doing what I'm designed to do. And so it was in my probably mid 30s that I finally realized, hey, I'm a coach. That's what I do. Whether it's in counseling, whether it's in business, whether it's whatever element it is, I enjoy spending time and seeing people succeed, and I enjoy doing that with a lot of people together. And give me a mission, give me a goal, give me the people, and let's go.
Yeah, man. I love it. So you worked with athletes at some point. Was that right or no?
Yeah. During the media days, when I owned a media company, my business partner and I were both avid sports fans, Texas A&M fans, and we got a crazy opportunity because we had both done a lot of public speaking as well. We got a crazy opportunity to do some media training for the A&M football program. And that was the year before a kid by the name of Johnny Manziel came through A&M. Johnny Football. And so I worked with Johnny in media prep his first year, and then his second, and that was his redshirt year, so he didn't play. But they could tell, they knew, this kid had something special. So long story short, the next year, I find myself at the end of the year, not only working with the coaching staff, the team, but also writing a Heisman speech. And so the speech that Johnny gave when he won the Heisman, I wrote that speech and helped prep him for it. And that ended up opening some hilarious and awesome and fun doors with some professional players. And so I started doing a little bit of media training and media work with primarily professional football players. And I still have one or two very specific clients that are very good friends and very high profile guys that I wrote a speech last night for one of my guys.
I just saw a documentary. I remember when Johnny Manziel, was getting on the national spot, on the national scene, but you knew him, before then. But this ESPN profile was just how he just shot out of a cannon. It was like this, just so much attention on this young man, right? It was just so intense and so focused. He just, was so big so fast, right? And it sounds like you were on the boots on the ground, running right along that story. I think that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, I saw the rise. I was there
Yep.
for that season, the first season where he won the Heisman, and
Yeah.
I was kind of behind the scenes because I was working with him. I got to know him. Enjoyed John. He was always great with me, but it was clear that it was too much, too fast. And man, I love the guy, but he's also, he's got some challenges that he's wrestling with, and I hope he's able to get those together. And he's fighting it just like we all are.
Totally, absolutely. We're all work in progress, right?
That's right. Absolutely.
So one thing I'm taking away that I hope our listeners are taking notes on this, because you're dropping a lot of knowledge right here. You didn't just find your lane right at a school and then just stay there. You were tinkering around, right? You were finding your spot, and we'll get into the legal space obviously in just a second. But if I'm not mistaken, you found your true passion. And I won't words about it. I want you to tell me if I'm flat out wrong here. Until you're like early 40s, is that fair? Until you really were finding somewhere where you are, living your best life. Is that fair or no?
Very close. Here's what I would say about it. I was doing the things. I gravitated towards the things that I naturally, like we all do often, that I was naturally good at, that were naturally bringing me some positive feedback, some success. I was doing those things from the time I was in college. And now I look back, probably even in high school, like the things I was involved with, the stuff that I think what happened was I didn't understand, because I tried to attach things to a certain profession, to a certain career. What do you want to be when you grow up? And so the interesting thing is, in all of the things that I did professionally, there was always, at 25 years old, I was a principal of a large private school, and that's a crazy story. I had opportunities that would develop, right? But I still didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. So to speak.
Right.
I didn't understand who I was, and when those, the things in me, put them together and say, oh, okay, I keep doing these things, but here's who I am. Here's why these threads, these elements keep popping up, working with people, working with teams, helping people get better, helping teams get better, strong drive to win, right? To be successful, but to do it in a way that really, that everybody who's involved feels involved, and everybody who's a part of it feels like they were cared for, right? That they experienced a deep personal joy and win, as well as the team getting a big win. Those things became real to me, and I understand, all right, now I get it. This is who I am. And that's when clarity came with, all right, I'm going to focus in on places where I can do this and run hard. And when the legal space opened up for me, and then there was, we saw a great deal of success very fast, all with people that were incredible and bought in and loved what was going on. And yet it was hard work, and we were, not fighting it out among us, sometimes fight and unite, but more so learning what it meant to be a team, go into the world, get into the industry, and make an impact. That was thrilling. And so getting to do that and putting those elements in me and getting, in the right spots, so to speak, deeply satisfying, and turned out to work out. So far, so good.
I love it. It's just so cool going from, 25, you're headmaster at this school, which is pretty young to have that, title. And that's awfully impressive. And then you end up in the legal space. Now, you're working with Johnny Manziel, and you're doing a lot of, professional athletes, soon to be professional athletes. Texas A&M, big time football for anyone who doesn't follow. This is, big time.
I wish.
Well, it's just Texas football. That's a big deal. So you gotta have, it's not for the faint of heart, but
nope.
to you said clarity, and that's really interesting, because you're like marrying clarity with serious passion and energy, and that stuff is just irresistible to people, I feel like, right? Like, because people want positive energy, right? I feel like you either have negative energy or positive energy. Your positive energy has gotten you to this point, right? And it seems like you just keep leaning into who you are, and you're living that life. I think it's awesome, man.
I appreciate it, and I'm loving every minute of it. And you're right, it is positive energy. It's born out of positive things. But I also say this, and you posted something the other day that really resonated with me, and it was about, hey, if you're working in a law firm, if you're a part of a firm and you're not being treated well, or you just feel like, the owner of the firm or the leadership of the firm is not, is just not, treating you right, treating you well. There's better opportunity out there. You posted that. That was a brave thing to post. That was a courageous thing to post. And the reason I bring it up is, yes, I believe in being positive. I want to believe the best about people. I think positive energy is the way you have to choose to move through life. But look, you also said this earlier. This industry, right, is not for the faint of heart.
Nope.
Working in, with lawyers, high drive people, high.
I know how you do it, man. We're
confidence. We'll say confidence, ego, maybe, but I have it too. I know. What I'm getting at is it's a positive energy, but I also am part of it as I get older and more. Man, I'm so convinced of these values. I'm so convinced. It may not be the only way. The way I think about these things, it's clearly not the only way to do it. No way. That's you can find success in a lot of different ways.
Sure.
But I believe loving people and demanding high performance is the right way. And so but I do find a lot of resistance to that. A lot of people who think that they believe in that, but in practice, not always so much. And so the reason I say is you say positive energy, yes, but that positive energy is not without conflict. It's not without, challenge.
Of course.
And then you have to decide, all right, well, I think I'm doing positive things, but sometimes it leads to conflict. Is that positive or is that negative? And how do you process through that? But for you guys, which I have enormous respect. I mean, I wouldn't have the life I have if not for the legal profession. And for guys and women who have gone through law school and maybe the toughest grind, a grueling process to even just become a lawyer. But then you get out and you got to make a way, or you're in competition with somebody in some way, whether it's in a firm and you're trying to make your way up the ladder, or you put out your own shingle. So you guys are trained fighters in many ways. You're trained how to think in certain ways. And I love it. I mean, there are elements to it that I just absolutely love. My youngest son may end up in law school, but it's a battle out there.
100%. So, so I just want to segue into the space. So you found, you found a spot in legal space that seems to check off the boxes for you, right? It lights you up clearly. I see that from you. What is it about? Why do you geek out on growing plaintiffs' firms? What is it about that you've talked about before? Purpose, like, what do you drive? What do you take from that gives you such energy?
Yeah, great question. Real quick, it gives me the opportunity to do those two things that I mentioned that I learned over time are a part of me, working with individuals. But I've said this for many years. It didn't have to be plaintiffs' law firms.
Sure.
But for me to feel like I was fully fulfilled and doing what I was designed to do, it needed to be with individuals that formed a team, and that team had goals that were, that the team existed and had a purpose that I could fully believe in.
Yep.
If you give me those three things, right? Individuals put on a team with a cause, a goal, a purpose that I can fully get behind, and let's go.
Yeah.
Now I have found my place in legal and PI specifically, and I love it. And it's the rest of my life. That I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life Because
Good for you, man. That's so cool.
The third piece is I believe in what we do. And, in my first role, my first COO position, it took 2 or 3 months of conversations with the partners of that firm to really, I didn't know a thing about PI law.
Yep.
I didn't have the negative stereotypes probably that a lot of people do in pop culture, ambulance chaser, all that stuff. I didn't have a lot of that, but I just didn't know. I really didn't know. And so it took, a lot of conversations before I was willing. They said, hey, we don't mind if you continue to do some work with athletes and all this. You got to think, I had just sold my business. I was in the process of selling some of the media stuff because print media was going the way of the dinosaur. But as I learned about this industry and learned the piece, of course, I was learning from PI lawyers, so I'm getting a certain perspective. But I bought in. I believed it. And over time, even though they presented it very well, I came to believe it for myself. And I believe the work we do is noble work. I believe that most insurance companies and the whole system is, I might go so far as to say, corrupt. It's definitely a conflict of interest with individuals who supposedly are supposed to be protected. And so I love being in a battle that resonates with me, that I believe in. So we're helping individuals. We're helping people who have been harmed. Their lives have been turned upside down, sometimes catastrophically, never be the same. I remember one of the first times I heard John Morgan speak, and he said, he was talking about, injuries and how you work up injuries. And he said, this is a forever injury. Right? This is forever damage. And that really stuck with me. Forever. This person's life will never be the same. Being a part of trying to bring something good and trying to balance out the universe, sign me up.
I love it. John Morgan was the first guest on this show, and I want to share something that I took from him, and I think this resonates with you as well. Is that he'll get up on stage and tell people how he gets cases, or he has in the past, and he'll say, "I share because no one's going to do the work that I do," right? Yeah. So I think a lot of people, I went to PILMA and I shared I don't have it figured out, man. I'm never going to figure it out, Bill. But I was sharing how I do things. The more you share, the more you have an abundance mindset, the more you put out to the universe, right? You're getting up there.
Absolutely.
And I doubt, you're in a very unique space. And I don't know if there's anyone out working you right now. And I love that because that resonates with me. Going back to grandma, she clearly taught you a work ethic. And you're just, you're running with that. And I love that. I love heart, because that's why I used to be on the show. That's what resonates with me is your grit, hard work, the passion. I mean, that's what I'm all about, right? You follow your heart. So you have done a lot of successful things, but you've fallen, sounds like, in love with the space that you thrive in. I don't know why you working with plaintiffs, personal injury lawyers, but that's another story. No, I'm just kidding.
Me either sometimes.
No, but seriously. So you're a competitive guy, right? And you're helping competitive leaders in an uber competitive space compete. Yeah. So I can see how that would get you juiced up a little bit,
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it does. That's why I also feel passionate. It's interesting. A lot of people hear the side of me that talks about love your people, and I'm the culture guy, and all that stuff, which is true. Those are values that I hold and always have. They've just been refined, maybe evolved over time. But I'm also, on the flip side, I'm also the guy that's like, yeah, love your people. But the other side of that is, I expect my team to believe in what we're doing and to work hard, to work as hard as I do. And I have a responsibility to lead by example in that way. But that's why sometimes I'm a little, in the current work climate, culturally, I probably fall on a little bit of the harsh side. As you probably heard, I don't like the term work-life balance. I think it reflects poorly, casts a negative shadow or light or whatever on work, makes work, work-life balance. Well, that implies that that work is bad and you need good life to balance out the bad work. I think that's completely hogwash. I think that's brainwashing that makes people dislike work, gives them an excuse to be a victim about work, and work is bad. And, no way. And now I love what I do. I know not everybody loves what they do, but I believe in a well-integrated life, time with your family, time with what's important. You don't have to be working all the time, but I don't think you have to balance the two out. I think if you love what you do, if you find a way to find some purpose in whatever the job is, you can have a well-integrated life. And you should have a well-integrated life. But I dislike this concept that we are feeding to, each new generation. It feels like that, it's your work life versus your personal life. And those are a battle. And so therefore your employer, the person you work for, they're the bad guy because they're asking you to do this work. That's negative. So that sometimes to the team doesn't sound fully loving, because right now the whole thing is, work-life balance. And I agree that you need to be healthy, and what if we switched our paradigm and said, I'm going to do work that I believe in, that resonates with me, that is an outflow of my values of who I am. Now, it's a privilege to find work like that. Not everybody is able to find work like that. But we are in our industry, because every day what we do, if we do it right, and sometimes even if we do it wrong, it doesn't change the fact that we're working for people who need our help.
Absolutely.
And when you're doing that, whether you're answering the phones or you're a trial lawyer, whatever it is your role is, if you're in a PI firm, you have the opportunity to change lives for the better. And
absolutely,
that's a privilege.
And you've talked about, I like this word saturating, saturating, as best you can, the belief, permeating that throughout. So the person answering the phone feels like I'm doing something, I'm helping someone out, because no one's better than anyone else on this bus, right? Everyone's driving the bus. When you can get everyone to drive the bus, you talk about multiplying leaders, right? Liz Weissman, the multipliers book, right? That's when CEOs can be CEOs, right? Now,
absolutely.
I want to ask you this. So you got into a law firm, and you've gotten to some law firms and really scaled them up. Today, do you stay in one firm and then grow it and then go to, someone else who is in need of your services? Do you work for multiple firms at once? How does that look?
It's kind of developed as the pattern. And again, I didn't design that out. I didn't realize that it was going to happen. Now it's more by design, because I see how it develops. Yes, the trend has been that I'll come in and I'll be the COO for some of these firms that have been, I'm super thankful for, that are willing to bring me in, and they take care of me, because I haven't moved. Technically, like I said, I live everywhere. But usually I get a condo or an apartment in that area. My wife and I go and visit the area, think about, is this something that we want to do? And I consider that that's my job. That's my primary job. But as a part of being the COO of that firm, there is an awareness that there's a chance that that's going to be temporary, because I'm bringing a lot of change, and I do believe in multiplying leaders. So I want to usually the people that are reaching out to me and saying, we want you to come and be here, as our COO, it's because things aren't the way they want them to be. They want to scale. They want to be the absolute best, or at least that's the idea that they have at that time. So I come in, I bring a lot of changes. We reform it, we reshape it. There is some shakeup there, and that can be challenging, both for the owner and the team.
Everybody.
And so I try to map that out. Now I'm getting a little better with that, but it does, in some ways, look, these are all firms that if they didn't want this, if they're reaching out to me, they've heard some stuff in the industry, whether it's from me or so many of the other good resources out there, of what it means to be one of the strongest firms in your market, or to dominate your market. And these are firms that are looking at, $30 million, $40 million, $50 million. They're big. They want to be. They're not yet, but they want to be. They're on the path. But there are systems. There's a way of thinking. There's a culture that comes along with that. there are do's and don'ts, and it's very operational, but it's also very based on some core values and you got to decide who you want to be. If you're going to grow that big, you can't be, in my opinion, you're not going to get there, or you're not going to get there well if you don't have an idea of clear vision, clear mission. And a lot of firms just don't have that. They're not wired that way, but they see the need for it. So I come in and do this, sometimes a year, sometimes 2 years, and I'm starting to see that's kind of the norm. And then I've installed things, and then it's time for somebody else to take it and run with it. I'm not saying that's the only pattern, but I'm seeing that has happened a few times in a row. But I will say I can't wait at some point to be a part of it. And I don't know if this would mean that I'm the only person or the COO of a massive firm, but there's that competitive part of me does want to see, scaling, 200, 300 member law firm, team member law firm, talking in the 50, 75, $100 million range. And it's not about the money to me. That's just a metric. It's just a revenue metric. There are a lot of things you've heard me talk about what I think makes a healthy firm. I want those things as well, but I'm very pro growth. I want people to get what they want. I always ask a law firm owner when I first get involved with them, whether it's consulting or as the full-time COO or CEO, I want to give you the firm that you want. Tell me what you want. And if we resonate with that, then let's go. So to answer your question, I do that, but then in every situation, I've always asked the owner, hey, as a part of this, I still want to be involved in some level of consulting, in speaking at conferences, because, there's a legacy, there's a long-term mission element for me as well. The idea of I want to impact as many lives as possible. And so being in the industry and getting a chance to see different firms and visit, and I take on usually 2 to 3 clients, consulting clients, coaching clients. And I am starting to look into, I've had some other COOs in the industry that have approached me about coaching them. And then as they work with firms, so kind of fractional COO work, where if what I'm talking about and these things that people hear and they've seen results or whatever, if they like it this way, if this is the way a firm wants to run, and I don't have the bandwidth to give it to them, then maybe I can coach somebody who can give that to them. So I'm playing with that a little bit. There's a lot of things in the works. A lot of stuff.
Hey, a lot of opportunity out there in this space. It's a big old space. So I got like 15 questions. You have to catch a flight, so I want to just ask you a few here that I think could really give value right to the audience.
I'll go faster. Briefly.
No worries. What's your biggest challenge? I love the fact you're a non-lawyer, looking at law, how to do it better, differently. What's your biggest challenge when you step into a firm? Do you find you keep seeing and seeing?
Man, there's so many. Chris, I have to go back and I can get more specific operationally if you want. If you want to go down that path, and then we can talk about that, because that might be more practical for people.
Sure.
And I want to give but I will say fundamentally, in almost every firm that I visit or that I've been a part of, when you say what are the biggest problems, what are the biggest issues, I keep saying the same stuff because I see it all the time. They don't have a clear vision. They don't appreciate and care. They don't have a high enough view of the client. That is an epidemic problem. And often they don't have a clear idea of what it means to put a team together in order to have this level of success. Because they're not trained to do it, it doesn't come naturally. They're trained to fight in a courtroom, to negotiate, to do other things. Organizational development is not something that, and so it happens. Mm-hmm. But then they look and they say, and usually they start coming to conferences, they hear something, they're like, I've got some issues. I've got some problems. So, but if I can turn a switch and change the make a couple of changes across the board, one of the first ones would be care about the client more. Really, really appreciate the client, and focus on that. That to me is a huge, huge deal. And that is not dependent on how the client behaves or how the client acts or how the client, functions, or, that's beside the fact.
Yeah, I appreciate everything's about the client, betterment of the client. And that's one thing that I've instituted my own firm. Because sometimes, in the past, Bill, I've been like, John Smith is busting my chops. Yeah. I'm the leader. Everyone's going to pick up on that vibe. But I have to say, John is actually, dealing with a lot of stuff right now. He's got a lot on his mind. We have to be very, understanding of him and get him through this. Then it's a mindset shift. Oh, John's not a burden. John helps us do what we do, helps us support ourselves. So John is integral to our existence. And so really distilling it,
Absolutely. I say, I have this, it's probably in some ways pathological, it's sick. I enjoy working with the most difficult clients in a firm. I always, when I'm working deep in a firm, I say, hey, the most challenging clients that you're having a problem with, immediately get them to me. And the reason is because I 95% of the time, I believe we're going to build trust. We're going to go back to some common stuff, and we're going to find a path forward. And I love when that I love, for so many reasons, I love being able to work with a difficult client and get them to a place where they are working better with their lawyer, with their paralegal, with their legal team, so that, number one, so that we're doing right by them, so that they're not abusing our team. I always say this as well. I have a high expectation of how we treat our clients, but I'm also not going to let you be abused.
Nope.
And that's why I want difficult clients. I'm going to protect you from difficult clients. We're going to figure out a way. And we may fire them. We may fire the client.
Yeah.
And that comes into some big things too. It's a big money case. Are you really going to do, there's a lot of dynamics, right? A lot of tension in there. But I tell my team, look, I'm not asking you to be abused, but I am saying, let's learn some skills and some fundamental heart shifts and mind shifts. And I love then when it works, and it 95% of the time, maybe more, it does. And then those teams, the lawyer, the paralegal, see that. And it, in some ways, it kind of proves to them, well, this can be done. Mr. Smith is not as bad as I thought he was. Well, yeah, because we played a part in why he's so frustrated. And he came to us not on a happy day. So let's figure that out and get Mr. Smith going in the right direction, build some trust. And, those are huge. To me, those are deeply satisfying situations. Difficult client that gets back on track, works with the team, and we get them to a better place. And it's possible, vast majority of the time.
There's a bunch of lawyers emailing you right now. Bill, I've got some difficult clients. If you want to talk to them. I got closet full, Bill.
And the world is just full of all these difficult people that happen to call us. It has nothing to do with how little we talk to them.
No, 100%. So, short on time, I just want to ask you quickly about something that's super interesting to me that I want to implement, the social contract. Could you speak to that? I think it's super interesting. That's innovative in this space that I'm going to adopt. How do you go about that? What is it?
Yeah. So not my idea. I learned this from a leadership coach, Flip Flippin, actually, in the town that I reside. Incredible guy. We used it in the firm where I first went. Basically, it's this, and it comes from John Locke, who was not a founding father, but he was a part of that early movement. Some people call him the father of democracy, but he had a lot of thoughts, right, about people and how people function together. And one of his thoughts, the fundamental idea is this, and people can reach out to me and I'll give more details since our time is limited. It's basically this. You get a group of people together and you find out what are these core values, what are these core things of the way we want to treat each other. And not just what we're committed to, of how we're going to treat each other, of how we're going to work, like literally the mindset, the energy, the approach, the work ethic that we're going to bring. So how we treat each other, the work ethic that the way we work, how we're committed to working, and how we're going to deal with conflict. And so we walk through a process of coming up with values, tenets, you might say, of what we are agreeing to about how we're going to treat one another in this firm, on this team, how we're going to do this work, what we're committed to, and how we're committed to dealing with conflict, which is a key piece of the social contract. And it is unbelievable, the impact. You can't do this half-assed, though. Because if you do this whole process and you get a social, and then you never follow it and you don't reinforce and reinforce and reinforce, then it's just one more thing that was what I call a false start, right? Yep. You jump the line and you said you were going to, but then you never reinforce it and never takes fruit. But when it does, now think about a team that everybody has agreed, we're not going to be perfect. We're going to have failures. We're going to mess up. We're human. But there's this higher standard. Here's how we're going to treat each other. Here's how we're going to work. And here's how we're going to deal with conflict that that is going to happen because it's a part of who we are. It's part of the industry that we're in. But we're going to come up with how we're going to do it. Man, it creates safety, social safety, emotional safety. People feel like they can, the chains are broken. And if you reinforce it properly, they can run. And healthy people love being in that environment. And it will also help push out unhealthy people because they'll violate it over and over again. And then you say, you can't be a part of this team. You committed to these things and you're not able to do it. And we're sorry, but we're running, we're going hard. You got to commit to these things. And yeah, we're going to fail, but there's a way to come back and make amends when you do, and then to grow so it doesn't happen as much. The failures are fewer and far between. It's
love it.
And it's not my idea. There are a lot of people out there doing similar things. Man. But man, it is a game changer if you want a highly optimized team.
I love it. All right, just a couple quick questions before we wrap things up. What do you generally look for? Because you probably you shake up things, right? Because some things are working in a law firm you walk into, some things are not working so well. Yeah. Change is necessary. What are some things you hunt when hiring for those A players? What are some things you look for in bringing on talent into the organization?
3 things that I'm always looking for in every hire. Number 1, high intelligence. And I'm not saying it's number 1 in order. I'm just here. Look, we need people who have high aptitude, who are able, and that doesn't mean that they did great in school but they can pick this stuff up, right? So I want people with high aptitude, high intelligence. I want people with high drive. They have, this desire to make something out of their life. They're hungry for purpose. I want to see that, right? And when they find something, man, they'll work their tail off for it because this is hard work. So I want highly intelligent people. I want high drive people. And then as you've heard me say in many different ways, but I want to find true believers. And when I say true believers, it doesn't mean that everybody that we hire is going to automatically believe what we believe. And we shouldn't expect that right off the bat. But I look for things in them that tell me, that are cues that tell me this person can believe in this work. And they want to believe in something, right? They want to be a true believer. They want to find a purpose. They want to find a reason. And so that, for me, that's a part of the ads that we build, of how we look to attract people, from everything we put out there on Indeed or whatever, LinkedIn, whatever, all the way to when they're going through the shadow process, the interview process. I'm planting these seeds of who we are, what we're about. And if they're getting close to being hired, then they spend time with me. And I basically tell them, this is what we're about. This is who we are. I give them the true believer litmus test. Yeah. And so they know from the beginning how important it is. And I see how they respond to that. And that's a huge piece. That's why I'm tough on defense attorneys when I'm looking to hire attorneys, because I want to believe they believe in what we're doing, not just wanting, a better job.
Okay, thank you. And I would just add on to that, Patrick Lencioni, I love this one book, all of his books, but The Ideal Team Player as an adjunct to what Bill just talked about, invaluable. It'll grow your law firm. You guys Absolutely. Just put on the Vista Leadership Conference in Vegas. You're always getting out there, right? If a lawyer listening to this can go to one, besides the Vista Conference, of course, if a lawyer can go to one conference a year, you just got one, right? Your spouse is saying you got one trip this year for business convention. What do you think gives the best value, the best bang for your buck, the best punch?
There's something coming, Chris, that I think will be that one.
Okay.
And stay tuned. More about that in the next few weeks.
Awesome.
So that's the mysterious plug there. And I do believe that it will be transformative and unlike anything that's happened in the industry up to this point. So after you get permission from your partner, your spouse to go to that one.
I like NTL myself, man.
I mean, because they do different things. That's why.
Totally. They're all different.
Yeah. So I'll go with you on that one. And the reason is because pretty much everybody's at NTL. And so whatever, you may not come away from NTL with, now I've got the perfect blueprint for my firm.
Sure.
But you'll at least be exposed to all the things that you may need and the resources you may need to make that happen. I don't know that there's a one that can transform your firm if you go to this conference, but there are several that you can start to find the path. NTL is one of those. PILMA is one of those.
Definitely.
I think what the guys at Fireproof are doing is fantastic. Nake's a very close friend. And so there's some good things happening out there that really, yeah. So, but I'll go with you. NTL, if you could only do one other than the one that you'll hear about in a few weeks, I'll say NTL.
Well, all right. I know you got to jump out of airplane pretty soon. Let me ask you this question, the last question. What's your greatest success in life so far?
My kiddos.
I love it. Me too, man.
My sons. And also my biggest failures and my biggest successes are in the context of being a husband and father. There's
Me and you both.
No doubt about it. And so, but what do I look at and say, what am I most proud of? Joey and Caleb Biggs. That's it.
Good for you, Dad. Nice job. Very good job. How can people reach out to you, Bill? How can they get in contact with you?
Yeah, you can look me up on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Look, I'll get my cell phone, 979-219-1404, and you can put it on the screen. That people can reach out to me in those ways. I think most are connected with me, or at least it's easy to get connected with me on social.
You're not hard to find. You're out there, and I love that. Honestly, and I mean this truly. I could talk with you for hours about this stuff.
Me too, man.
I'm all into this stuff, and I appreciate you. I love what you're doing. I'm sure I'll see you on the trail soon. But thanks for making the time and keep kicking butt. And I can't wait to hear more about this conference that you were talking about, this mysterious event. Now you're just, everyone's like, okay, tell me more. Come on, you can't leave me hanging like that.
Yeah. Hey, Chris, I love you, man. I love what you're doing. I'm excited to see the growth of your firm and your team. You're the real deal, and we need more of them, more guys like you in the industry. And so thanks for having me on. I appreciate you.
Thank you, friend. Thank you so much, Bill. It means a lot. All right, that's it for this show. Thanks for joining us. That's it for this episode of The Earley Show. Be sure to check out more episodes of our show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and the Answer Legal YouTube channel.